May 29, 1658. 8 miles east of Agra. One more elephant panics under artillery fire. It turns. It runs. The army behind it, seeing their commander's elephant retreating, breaks apart within minutes. That animal's panic ended one of the greatest civilizations in human history. And it opened the door for the British to rule India for 200 years. This is what India looks like when the elephant holds. The man on that elephant was Dara Shikoh, Shah Jahan's eldest son. The man his father, the builder of the Taj Mahal, had chosen to succeed him. Dara was not what you expect from a Mughal emperor. He spent his days with Sufi mystics, Hindu yogis, and Brahmin scholars. He wrote a book called The Confluence of the Two Seas, arguing that Islamic philosophy and Hindu Vedanta were two rivers flowing toward the same ocean. He translated 52 Upanishads from Sanskrit into Persian, the first time that tradition had been accessible to the Islamic world. His brother Aurangzeb was everything Dara was not. Methodical. Ruthless. A general who had never lost a battle. And a man who believed that every year of religious accommodation between Islam and Hinduism was a theological mistake that needed to be corrected. In September 1657, Shah Jahan fell critically ill. His 4 sons immediately began marching armies toward each other. By the following spring, it was down to 2, Dara and Aurangzeb. The philosopher and the general. They met at Samugarh. Aurangzeb's forces fired on Dara's elephant. The animal panicked. And with it, an empire. Here is what changes when the elephant doesn't panic: everything. But here is the thing that makes this divergence more interesting than it first appears. Dara wasn't just a better person than Aurangzeb. He had figured out something about the structural mechanics of empire that his brother was about to get catastrophically wrong, and that error would take down not just the Mughals, but India's ability to resist colonialism for 2 centuries. That is what is actually at stake at Samugarh. Not just which brother sits on a throne. The entire trajectory of the modern world. Dara's first problem is Aurangzeb, who survived the battle and still commands loyalty in the Deccan. Every Mughal precedent says execute him. Dara doesn't. He appoints Aurangzeb governor of the Deccan, far from the capital, with enough territory to satisfy his ambition and enough surveillance to contain it. His court is horrified. Historians will argue about this decision for centuries. It is simultaneously the wisest and most dangerous thing Dara ever does. His second move is faster and more consequential. He reinstates every Hindu and Rajput officer Aurangzeb had been purging from the administrative ranks. This sounds like justice. It is also genius. The Mansabdari system, the administrative backbone of the entire empire, was staffed overwhelmingly by Hindu and Rajput officers. Aurangzeb had been systematically replacing them with Orthodox Muslims. It was like pulling the load-bearing walls out of a building one by one. Dara puts them back. The Mughal civil service becomes the most efficient it has ever been. Not because Dara is a brilliant administrator, he is not. Because he stops systematically alienating 80% of his subjects. His counselors tell him his translation project, the Upanishads into Gujarati, Bengali, Tamil, every language of the empire, is politically dangerous. He asks why. They cannot give him a satisfactory answer. He proceeds. By 1670, there are printing houses in Delhi, Agra, Lahore, and Surat. The philosophy of 2 civilizations is moving through a continent at the speed of a printing press. And somewhere in London, the East India Company is watching a unified, administratively competent Mughal empire and quietly revising its plans. Here is what people misunderstand about the British conquest of India. It was not a military victory. One of the most sophisticated civilizations on Earth, with a population of 200 million, was not conquered by force by a trading company from an island of 7 million. The British succeeded because they arrived at the precise moment when the Mughal center had collapsed. The Marathas and Mughals were bleeding each other dry, the Sikhs were building an independent state in the Punjab, and the Afghan invasions had looted Delhi twice in a decade. They did not conquer India. They walked into a building that was already falling down. Now trace every one of those structural failures back to their source. The Maratha Confederacy became an existential military threat because Aurangzeb spent 27 years trying to destroy it by force, which transformed a regional Hindu kingdom into a civilization-level resistance movement. Remove Aurangzeb. The Marathas remain a regional power within a federal structure, not an empire-ending enemy outside it. The treasury was empty because Aurangzeb's Deccan Wars cost the equivalent of the empire's entire annual revenue, every year, for 27 years. Remove the wars. The treasury is solvent. The Hindu officer class defected or withdrew because they were taxed, humiliated, and had their temples destroyed. Remove the jizya, remove the temple destruction, restore the officers. The loyalty holds. When the British arrive at Surat and Calcutta and Madras in this timeline, they find something they have no playbook for: a functional state. Not a perfect state. The Mughal Empire under Dara's successors is corrupt in places, inefficient in places, and perpetually managing the Aurangzeb problem in the Deccan. But it is coherent. It has an army. It has a treasury. It has administrative continuity. The British get trading posts. They get cotton and spice contracts. They get wealthy. They do not get an empire. An India that was never colonized is not a perfect India. It still has caste hierarchy, regional conflict, religious tension, dynastic succession crises. History doesn't become frictionless because one elephant didn't run. What it doesn't have is 2 centuries of deliberate deindustrialization. The British Empire systematically dismantled Indian manufacturing to create captive markets for British goods. Cotton tariffs. Textile import duties. The destruction of the Bengali weaving industry. The engineering of famines as population management tools. By 1900, India, which had produced a third of global GDP in 1700, produced 4%. In Dara's timeline, Indian cotton is still flooding global markets in 1900. Indian steel, Indian chemicals, Indian machinery are competing on equal terms with European products, not because India is magically more advanced, but because it never had its productive capacity systematically stripped out. The Indian Ocean Trade Network, already the most sophisticated in the world, expands outward rather than being rerouted through European intermediaries. Indian capital finances Indian infrastructure. The railway network that British India built to extract resources to ports gets built instead to connect markets to markets. By the early 20th century, the Federal Republic of Greater India, what the Mughal Empire gradually became through 2 centuries of constitutional negotiation, is not a rising power. It is a continuous power. It never fell, so it never had to rise. There is no partition. In our timeline, the 1947 partition of India and Pakistan killed approximately 2 million people and displaced 15 million in a matter of months. It was one of the largest forced migrations in human history. It happened because 2 centuries of colonial rule had made religious identity the primary political identity, because when the British needed a divide-and-rule strategy, communal religion was the easiest fault line to exploit. In Dara's timeline, religious identity was explicitly designed out of political primacy from the beginning. The state was built to hold Islam and Hinduism as parallel tracks, not competing ones. There is no wound to divide along. The Taj Mahal still exists in this timeline. Of course it does. Shah Jahan built it between 1631 and 1648 as a tomb for his wife Mumtaz Mahal. Nothing about Dara's victory changes that. The building stands exactly as it does in our world, ivory white marble, perfect symmetry, the greatest architectural achievement in human history. But it means something different here. In our world, the Taj Mahal is a monument of heartbreak twice over. First, for what it commemorates, a man so destroyed by grief that he spent 22 years building the world's most expensive act of mourning. And second, for what surrounds it, the poverty, the pollution, the Yamuna River that runs behind it reduced to a trickle of sewage, the sense that the building exists in defiance of its context, a masterpiece stranded in ruin. In Dara's timeline, the Taj Mahal stands at the center of the capital of one of the world's great powers. It is not a relic. It is not a monument to what was lost. It is the founding monument of a civilization that never stopped building. Shah Jahan built the most beautiful building in the world. Dara Shikoh, by surviving that battle, ensured that the world it was built for survived too. The Federal Republic of Greater India in 2026 is not a utopia. It has political corruption and regional inequality and a messy, argumentative democracy that foreigners find baffling. But it governs itself. It has governed itself continuously, in some form, since the Mughal founding. It was never anyone else's colony. Its people were never anyone else's subjects. The Taj is no longer the most expensive monument to grief in the world. In this timeline, it is just the most beautiful building. One animal. One decision. One afternoon. The philosopher's elephant held the line and the philosopher became emperor. He made one brilliant decision, keeping his enemy alive and useful rather than dead and martyred. He made one visionary decision, printing the philosophy of two civilizations and releasing it into a continent. He made one structural decision, treating 80% of his subjects as people whose loyalty was worth keeping. None of these are miraculous. None require genius. They require only the absence of the specific kind of pride that makes a ruler think suppression is cheaper than inclusion. Aurangzeb looked at the civilization his father had built and saw a deviation from orthodoxy that needed to be corrected. Dara looked at the same civilization and saw the most interesting thing that had ever happened in human history, two of the world's great religious traditions talking to each other as equals, in the same room, in the same language, in the same empire. He was right. And we lost it because of an elephant. Is a civilization built on synthesis stronger or weaker than one built on uniformity? Dara thought he knew the answer. I think he was right. Tell me if you disagree. Until the vault opens again, subscribe to the Alternate Archive.